Chair will call case number,
Yes.
case number 008072, 54 Washburn Avenue. Anyone here wishing to be heard on this matter?
Yes.
Deborah Leggett, Counsel for North Charles.
And Gary Holt, CEO of North Charles.
I'm sorry, your name again? Gary?
Poole, H-O-U-L-E.
And can you spell your name, please?
Deborah Leggett, DBLA.
This is yet another appeal from the decision by an enforcement letter from the Inspection Services Department, am I right?
Correct.
Floor is yours.
Some months ago, beginning apparently in March of this year, North Charles applied for and obtained a building permit as well as a certificate of occupancy related to 54 Washburn Street.
This application, what did it identify the use of the premises for?
It identified the use of the premises in a myriad of ways.
No, it doesn't. It's the one, there's 3 words, general office use. That's all it says in the application.
The application says Zone B.
No, I'm talking about, and there's a, I don't have it, I can dig it out probably, but there is a space to be filled in as to what you're going to use the space for. The space was listed general office use.
Is that on
In the
the
application
permit
for the permit,
or the certificate?
And unless I'm hallucinating, I remember reading them. But let me see.
application for a building permit is current use for proposed use B, Zone B.
You know, I marked it. I had a. I think this is important, so I'm going to take the time. There it is. Here is the application. The request for certificate of use and occupancy, right here.
Yes.
And right down it says, list occupancy. And on the first floor, it was written medical clinic, and it was scratched out, and general office was written in. That's the first floor. Second floor, same thing. Medical clinic was originally written in. Someone scratched it out and wrote in general office.
Correct.
So you applied, when you requested your certificate of occupancy, you were advising the city that these premises are going to be used for general office.
The certificate, the application was originally completed by the construction superintendent. He is signed here as the applicant. He originally filled this out,
Yeah.
as is explained in the statement related to this case. He was not given the certificate of occupancy. He did not have the fee with him. He did not have the owner's certificate with him. And the next day, Mr. Poole went to Inspectional Services, had a conversation with the commissioner regarding the use, and following that conversation, including discussion of all of what North Charles does, the commissioner advised Mr. Poole to change the permitted use from medical clinic to general office.
I think we may have a difference of opinion when the time comes from Mr. Tinganayagam as to what he advised. But be that as it may, we can move on. The fact of the matter is that at the end of the day, it's your application, your client's application, and the application says general office use.
Right.
And how you got there is my view, neither here nor there. You've told the city you're going to use it for general office use.
And we contend we are using it for general
Okay.
office use.
I want to hear why. How many doctors are occupying the premise, or other medical professionals?
Yeah, I can't answer that question.
You can.
And
Well, no, wait a minute. How many?
Just one.
Just, you only have one?
Well, we have 2 physicians that probably work, each of them works probably, one works 6 hours a week and the other one's about 8 hours a week.
And
So
any
no more than
nurses,
one.
any other paraprofessionals in the medical field?
And they're all counselors, so that these social workers, LMHC, which is a licensed mental health counselor, and then just regular just masses of people.
How many employees do you have in the property generally? And of that number, how many of those would fit in all these categories?
Probably, let's see, I'm backing out all
Yeah,
of
I'm
them.
just giving you an approximation. I'm not going to hold you to it.
Backing up the administrative people, so Probably about 15 out of probably about 27.
So a majority of the, roughly
Correct.
a majority of the employees in the premises are people who perform some sort of professional services, either medical, counseling.
Well, no, there's no medical, so it's all counseling.
Well, aren't prescriptions written on the premises?
One of the doctors occasionally writes psychiatric
All right.
medication. Correct.
Isn't that practicing medicine?
I suppose it is.
Okay. Okay, so there's practice of medicine on the property, there's other counseling services, and you contend, which is basically the crux of your appeal, that all this falls within the rubric of general office? Do I get it right?
Yes.
Okay. Keep going.
To the extent there are prescriptions being written on the premises, it is an ancillary use at best. It is minor compared to the majority of the use of the premises. All of the members of ISD who interacted with North Charles were fully aware of the services that North Charles offers. It is grossly disclosed in the variance that ISD was fully aware of and copied on many times. ISD itself wrote in emails that the tenant is a mental health service provider. And ISD, with that information, issued that building
What you're
permit
suggesting
and
is
issued
the notion of
occupancy
estoppel. You're really suggesting, which we discussed in the last case. Even if that's true, I'm not going to say it's not, I'm going to say it is. Even if it's true, that doesn't mean that if the city officials, upon further examination or whatever, have decided that the advice they gave earlier, which is informal advice, it's not informal permit, it was not correct or should be revised, they have a right to do that. You can't, I'm not going to say to the city of Cambridge that once you've said something, the officials can't change their mind. They can't change it if they've granted an actual permit for something, but they get a permit for general office use. So we go back to the notion, is that are you using these premises for general office use, or are you using it for something else? Because if it's something else, the legal non-conforming use, which applies to this property, was for general office use.
And it is our position
I know
that
that.
ISD has already determined on 2 separate occasions by issuing the building permit and by issuing the occupancy permit that they have made the determination that this use is general office use.
But they now have made, obviously because of the cease and desist letter, they have made a determination, if they did it before, they're not making it any longer. Clearly, that's right, that's why you have the cease and desist letter.
I understand that that is why the cease and desist letter was issued, to the extent that the cease and desist letter suggests that there is something going on that was going on before and should not have been. What the cease and desist letter says is drug rehabilitation and counseling services. I don't know what drug rehabilitation is under your zoning ordinance whatsoever, and as far as counseling services go, it was absolutely disclosed that there was counseling services, and it was determined to be general office use.
We'll see about that. And in terms of, again, it's not so much, I'm going to go back to the notion, it's not so much what those words mean. At the end of the day, it's general office use. Doesn't, I think in the common sense interpretation of those words, would someone say the type of services that are provided on the premises, right, with 15 or a majority of the people or your employees on the premises performing services other than clerical or what I would call other general office services, whether that enables you to continue the legal non-conforming use. The inspectional services department, presumably, they'll have the chance to speak. That's why they looked at the application and they said, it's got to be general office use. Now, if they got informal advice that what you want to do is within general office use, well, he may have changed his mind. He may not have had all the facts beforehand, or he just may have been decided it was wrong. I'm not going to, it could be any of the above, but that doesn't stop inspectional services from therefore taking action to, as they did, for cease and desist. I think the only way you get there, seems to me, is you've got to convince this board is that what you do on these premises is general office use. As you can see from my question, again, I'm going to shut up in a second, I'm very skeptical about that. That doesn't sound like to me a general office use in the common sense of the word.
I don't know that it needs to be in the common sense of the
What
word.
sense?
It needs to be only in the sense of how these ordinances are written. And there is no other use that this facility clearly falls under other than general office use.
From the state's perspective, I think our licensing indicates that we're general business use in the eyes of the state.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Non-medical- non-medical.
I appreciate you telling us that. That's it.
We're licensed under non-medical rules.
And if they are considered a business use.
And even the variance, I think, on the lift would indicate that the Architectural Access Board and ISD at the time agreed that we were non-medical use on the variance that was issued for the lift.
Oh, for the lift. If that's what the
Yeah, for the
architectural
lift.
board, that's not a variance, for zoning variance.
But ISD participated in that entire application.
How did they, I'm just curious, how
They
did they?
referred it to the they referred it to the access board. They were copied on all of the
Right.
communications between the access board and
You're getting back to
And
the
get some
Gestapo
advice.
notion. You keep going back, that they did this before and therefore they can't change their mind. That doesn't work in municipal, in any kind of governmental function. There's no notion of estoppel.
putting aside the notion of estoppel.
Right.
The point being that if there was a question about what it is that North Charles was or was not doing at that facility, then there was every opportunity for that to be explored. And it was not explored because it was determined by ISD at the time that this fell into the category of general office use.
And even if I accept that, I'm saying to you is that the ISC has the right to change its mind. And in fact, maybe has changed its mind. Because if they can't change its mind, then they're stopped. The notion of a stop, as they said, that doesn't apply to governmental officials. I mean, that's the reason you have a stop laws. It's the danger of this. There's a lot of verbal communications back and forth. There's no record maintained. People can, no, there's no
There's
transcript.
clearly a record here.
There's no transcript. At the end of the day, there is an application that says we're going to use it for general office use.
But there's plans and there's prints and there were full working drawings and, I mean,
Every bit of this application was absolutely
All right, I
clear
got it.
what this use was.
we clearly, in the application for the variance list, went into great depth into what we did and why we do it and why we needed the lift, because we deal with handicapped folks.
Okay.
And there was, we made some alterations actually at the request of ISD and Architectural Access Board on the exterior of the building because they didn't like the way the ramp was. That, in order to comply with even general business uses, that we had to make changes to the handrails, to the ramp pitch, etc. And so there was a lot of, there was extensive discussions about what needed to happen in order for us to be in the building. And I don't think that at any time there was no attempt to hide what we would do. Absolutely,
There's no suggestion.
there was absolutely no attempt to deceive anyone.
Well, it might have been a presentation at the time, and then it's the use part after that time. It's the use time, the use of the facility after that CO. So there's a presentation of what we are, and to comply with the requirements of the certificate of occupancy. And then once we occupy the space, then apparently what the issue is, then it's the use thereafter.
The use
Are there
has not
any meds in the building at all?
None,
And so none are distributed? Okay.
none.
There is nothing going on in this building that was not fully disclosed within the application documents. There is no change of use from what was approved by ISD.
Which is just general office use.
General office use, and it is disclosed within the variance application and acknowledged by ISD that the service is primarily a professional practice, providing individual assessment and counseling.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is that
And that is consistent with the previous use, which
that
was
was
a professional
before,
use.
right, but that was before the actual occupancy and daily routine of the building. All right, so that's one aspect of it. That's prior to,
Right.
and then you get your CO, and then you occupy it. And I think what the issue that is before us is then it's that occupancy after the CO, the use of the building after. So that's what I'm trying to get at. I don't doubt or question your truthfulness in putting down on a document what you intended the building for. I don't doubt that at all. It's, we make here testimony that what was intended, what was applied for, is different than the normal, because I don't think anybody from ISD has gone in on a daily basis and walked up and down to see exactly what was going on, the modus operandi of the daily routine.
Well, we can tell you that there has been no change in use
Okay.
from what was disclosed. Absolutely not.
What permits did you receive from the inspectional services division?
A building permit and a certificate of occupancy.
You didn't receive a variance.
No.
Only for the lift.
And that was the architectural board, not a variance.
And you didn't receive any special permit.
Correct. We were not requested to apply for special permit.
At the time, yeah, we were not
No,
requested to
well,
apply.
they're put in context. This is a residentially zoned district, and this is the structure is a legal non-conforming use. So it's an audit, and the legal non-conforming use is for general offices. That was the legal non-conforming use. For someone to use a building, continue to use a building without seeking a zoning variance to operate a business in a residential district, they have to do a general office use. It's got to be consistent with what the earlier use of the building was.
In other words, if a medical use were sought as a medical office, there would be an additional permit requirement. They would have to seek a variance.
I believe so, but that's not before.
If social services or social counseling were required, they would have to seek a special
I don't
permit.
think it's the issue before us.
That's the question.
That's the question, right?
Why was this building allowed to be a non-conforming use in the first place? Was it
I assume it was because it was being used for
Used as an
general
office
office
space
before
more than-
the area got zoned residential.
Pre-existing non-conforming.
Yeah. I mean, they're always, the petition, the appellant in this case is always free, should we deny their appeal, to come back with a variance request and to allow your current use in this residential district, whether it was granted is another issue, just like live and kicking. Looks like they're going to come back before us too. But, to point that out, it's not necessarily if we should deny your appeal, and I haven't said we're going to deny it, it's not necessarily mean the case is over yet. It just means round one is over. Anyway, continue. If you have any more to say.
At this time, I don't have any more.
Mrs. Hingan, do you want to comment? It's up to you.
Building permit is a residence.
For the record.
Ranjit Singh and Item Inspection Service, Cambridge. The building permit was applied, and in that there's a column or there's a row they're asking for existing use and proposed use. I think the builder, whoever applied, he put B. B is an indication in the building code analysis that is business use or not. So they put business use. There's no indication in the building permit application at all that there's going to be a change in use or use. So when it came to that, the case of certificate of occupancy, I know it's residence being pre-existing non-conforming. I told Mr. Cole that use only allowed us for general office. We have to scratch it off and use only as a general office. Is it fine? It's a general office and use it. But later I get complaint that there are patients coming in and out. So I found out that it's more like a what do you call it, social service center, service center. So I said we may need a special permit if that's the case. Because they do some services there. That's what triggered all these stuff. Then later, there are other uses maybe which I don't know in that building.
Anything else you wish to add?
No, I didn't, on zoning, nobody indicated that there's zoning change here at the time of the application.
Okay.
And the access board triggers based on cost too, so as you know.
Any members of the board have questions of Mrs. Singh and I? Thank you, Ron. Commissioner, anything more you can add? Or go away there. You might have to talk. No, you can sit down. I'm going to open the matter up to public testimony. Is there anyone here wishing to be, how come I knew this? Heard in this matter. Let me say, just, you all have your opportunity to speak. I would just ask that if you want to make a point and someone before you has made that point, please don't take our time up. We're not as stupid as we look. You may believe otherwise, and we get it. we did it the first time. We have a substantial amount of written communications in our file too, which I'm not going to read, but I'm just going to summarize at some point. So with that, by way of caveat, I'm going to open the floodgates. Sir, you can go first.
I'm Ivan Toft. I live right across the street.
Can you speak this
yes.
way? What's your
Yeah,
name?
Ivan Toft.
Ivan,
Toft.
T-O-F-T?
T-O-F-T. I live right across the street. I was just going to say, I think part of why we're here where we are now is the charming trust of just the word, of the authority of one person. People began asking, what are you doing there? And he just says whatever he needs to say. And that's been happening tonight, too. The idea, one of the sort of red herrings here is the idea that if there are no drugs on the premises, then there's no medical care going on. That's a preposterous notion. The treatment of patients. We watch them walking up the street. These are people who need help. We're very sympathetic with their treatment. We don't want to shut NCI down. We have great admiration for the mission, but what we've been asserting from the beginning is that this is an awful fit for this particular use of this particular site in that particular neighborhood. Not anywhere in Cambridge, but just right there. It's an awful fit. It's a safety hazard, and it's preposterous, the notion that there's not a medical treatment with patients. We see them. They're patients. They think of themselves as patients. There's been some discussion that we're listening in on them. Well, gosh, we're right across the street. You can't not hear the patients referring to themselves as patients, referring to them showing up for their treatment. This is a medical facility that's giving out counseling is medical treatment. It's an antiquated notion that you have to have a pill or have your leg or put your arm in a cast to have medical treatment. This is treatment. Those are patients. That's a new use of the facility. It's not standard office use. I wanted to add one more thing, but I'm getting too sort of flying. I'm sure my neighbors can make other points as well. But that is the gravamen of the sort of case. It's new use. And him it's just saying over and over again that it's not, that it's an office. Part of it's that the procedures are opaque. We don't know what's going on in there. We're not nosy. We're not going to go in. So all we have is his word. No, nothing's going on there. How do we know that's the case? Well, we've been able to put together through research that the personnel who are working there are many medical staff. When they advertise for new people, they advertise for medical staff, people who can treat patients. Okay? And then, again, as I said, just from being on the street, these people think of themselves as patients being treated at that facility. So I'll leave that point alone with my neighbors make other points.
And you seem to be very anxious, so you go next.
I do, I want to, as a person.
Name and address of the...
Rachel Rubin, RUBIN, 107 Green Street. And as an academic who deals with languages, I just feel the need to say that words mean different things in different contexts. So if somebody calls himself informally a patient, that is not the same as the legal definition of the word or the way it would be used at an event like this. And sort of, we know this, right? We can all think of words that we use one way, mean something else literally, or that our kids say it literally when they don't mean literally, and I say literally when I do mean literally, but that we can't muddy that up here, right? We can't say somebody walking down the street said the word patient and therefore it applies in a legal sense. Because that's just dangerously slow.
The issue before us is whether what they're doing on this premises is a general office use, which is the only thing legally. What is your position on that?
That it is a general office use.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Antje Danielson, Antje is spelled A-N-T-J-E. I live and own 55
All right, you have to slow down. Names just,
Okay.
make my head spin. So,
Antje, A-N-T-J-E. Danielson, last name.
Danielson.
I live and own 55 Washburn Avenue. I'm a direct abutter. I would like to mention two things. We had a neighborhood meeting that was called by Mr. Hool and attended by a lot of neighbors and quite a number of city councilors about a week and a half ago. And the staff of NCI came to this meeting and introduced themselves, except for the legal advice here, as medical staff. They all emphasized that they had an affiliation with Harvard Medical School. I believe two of the people who there were psychiatrists. One of them was a nurse, and plus Mr. Hool. All four of them said that they had an affiliation with Harvard Medical School. I believe there is research. Oh, they also say that NCI operates in collaboration with Harvard Medical School, which makes me believe I'm also affiliated with a medical school, that this facility is actually performing research in collaboration with Harvard Medical School. So I think the notion that this is not a medical facility is preposterous.
Okay, and therefore, your conclusion is this is not a general office use?
That is not a general office use, and it's not the right use for a facility or for a space in a residential B zoning neighborhood.
Thank you. You seem the next most anxious person. Go ahead.
My name's Jeff Melnick, M-E-L-N-I-C-K. I live on Reed Street. I've lived in North Cambridge for 18 years. I want to speak in support of this facility as using the property in exactly the way they applied to using the property. The notion that anybody who's affiliated with a medical school or other kind of medical establishment is ipso facto a medical person, I think is illogical and shouldn't be in this conversation. There's lots of people who work at medical schools who are not medical professionals. You know, there's physical therapists, there's occupational therapists, there's all kinds of people. We happen to be in the middle of an opiate crisis in the state of Massachusetts right now. We need to have treatment centers in as many places as possible. They can't all be in Central Square. City Councilor Mark McGovern, who was at one of these meetings that was called by the North Cambridge Stabilization Committee, spoke very eloquently to exactly that point, which is to say, of course, Central Square is zoned differently than Washburn Avenue in North Cambridge, but we do need to be more creative in thinking about where treatment facilities are. I have every confidence that the board is going to think very carefully about what a general office building can do and should be doing, especially in this moment of crisis that we're living in right now.
Let me just make a comment on that. Clearly, this type of facility is a classic NIMBY situation, not my backyard. No one wants to have, I think it's fair to say, most people don't want to have this type of facility in their neighborhoods. Okay. But the issue here is a zoning issue. The city of Cambridge has adopted a zoning ordinance, and they said certain things can be done in certain districts. And in this district, where Washburn Avenue is, it's only residential. Now, there is a legal non-conforming use, because this building was used for non-residential purposes before the zoning got changed to make it residential. But it was used for general office purposes. And therefore, under the simple matter of law, can only be continued, the only use without a variance anyway. Before you get a variance, try to get one, is you've got to have this be a general office use. It's your view, then I take it that what they do in these facilities fits within the penumbra of general office use?
Absolutely. There's no evidence that, I've been reading all the materials, there's no evidence that any medical procedures are being done on the premises. There's no evidence that anything that we call medical practice is taking place on these grounds. I just also want to say, since you're the one who said NIMBY, that I live in this neighborhood. This is my backyard, and I do want this office to be in my backyard. I want my children to know about it. I want them to know that we support this kind of outreach for people who are less fortunate than we are and who need this kind of help. And that's my neighborhood, that's my backyard. I don't live right on the street, but North Cambridge is not that big of a neighborhood, and I welcome NCI to North Cambridge.
Okay, thank you. And I waved you off on that. They should have done that.
Appreciate that, thanks. I'm Cindy Weisbart, I live at 5 Tennyson.
Spell your last name?
W-E-I-S-B-A-R-T. Thanks. I live at 5 Tennyson in Somerville.
5
Tennyson Street in Somerville.
Tennyson Street, Somerville.
Is that the continuation of Washburn?
No,
I'm just trying to see.
in no way, it's not. But I have concerns, and I just, as I've been looking things up to prepare for understanding this, I note that where I go for mental health counseling in Cambridge is zoned for general office use. And my insurance pays for my time with my counseling.
Thank you. I've been going to this side of the room. Let me go to that side of the room. Terry?
Hi, my name is Bob O'Reilly. I live at 34 Washburn, a few hundred feet from NCI. I was listening to what's being said. I also looked at NCI's appeal papers that they filed with the board today or earlier this week. The one thing I keep coming away from some of these meetings that I've attended as well is that North Charles wanted to hear that this was general office space, and when they heard it, they went, great, and then they moved in. If they heard it was not going to be classified as general office, perhaps this lawyer would have been in Ranjit's office a long time ago. That's just kind of my opinion on this. We also looked at some of the other things in their documents, and one thing I found particularly, well, a couple things. But one, there were very few people in the community notified about this coming in. They can make all the statements they want that they flyered the neighborhood. Now, I work at home. I work out of my house. My wife works out of the house. We're there a lot. I did not receive a flyer from them. And I only know a couple people who did, because I've asked a lot of folks. So they don't think they did it. They didn't do a very good job. Not at all. I also find that they, you know, it's hard for me to believe that they don't consider what they're doing medical. They are counseling people who have serious, serious problems and who need our help. And that counseling is a form of medical service. My health insurance pays for counseling. I know that in the lexicographer's world that might not, you know, I might not be slicing up the word the way it should be, but I consider it medical. I'm not a professional.
Let me make one comment.
Yes,
Sorry
sir.
to interrupt you, but maybe one comment. The issue here, I'm very clear to everybody, we get this debate about whether it's medical or not. That's really not the issue. The issue is whether this is general office.
Okay.
If it's not general office, they can't do it, whether it's medical or it's
Gotcha.
Well,
Well, let me
garbage collection, whatever.
Talk about, you know, I've lived on the street since August of 2001. And there have been several other businesses occupying that building over the years. One was a plumbing supply company, or I'm not exactly sure, they had something to do with plumbing. There was a toy company there for a little while. There was then most recently a phone technology company. And they had 80 or so people working there. And those people rolled in, you know, like most people do. Tech people, they came and kind of worked a little later or started earlier, different crowd perhaps. But they were there 9 to 5 basically. They did not have a couple of waves of clients, of patients approaching the building at a couple different times during the day. They were a general business. Guy showed up around 9 o'clock, went home around 5 o'clock. It's different. I think another thing they said in there was that, you know, most of our complaints are related to the behavior of their clients as they leave or enter the building. And those complaints only exist because that this operation is going on there. I've talked to some of the folks out there. One of the guys asked me if he could pick tomatoes out of my front yard. I'm like, take them. I can't eat them fast enough, man. Go ahead, have a couple. But there's the ones who can barely drive a car, and they're going in and out of this place. Now, I'm not the oldest person on the street. I'm 61. There's some of my older neighbors who would have a hard time getting out of the way of that sort of thing. And then there's the kids. We have the neighborhood cycling like they do. We have a lot of kids about yay big. And they do what kids do. They run around and make noise and do all that good stuff. I'm concerned about that these people may be impaired or maybe they shouldn't be driving whether they're impaired or not because they're unstable in some other way. But I do think, to me, a general office is a place where people go to work most of the day and they don't see waves of clients coming in. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's Monica Toft, T-O-F-T. I'm at 63 Washburn Avenue, a direct butter. So just a couple of things, adding to what my neighbor said. If you look at their 990, which is their nonprofit statement that they have to give to the government each year, 3/4 of it, their funding comes from patient fees and Medicare and Medicaid.
Does that mean they're not general office?
I think that indicates that they have patients coming in, their predominant
So
business.
again, the issue is whether this is a general
So,
office.
to buttress that, if you look at the flow of traffic, like Bob O'Reilly just said, Mr. Hool has told us, actually in the newspaper, last week at the meeting, he told us there were 20 to 22 people who worked. And now we know that the majority of them are medically trained staff. When they advertise their jobs, they advertise under health services. And then the patients start arriving. They arrive after 7 a.m. the facility opens. Some people go in very quickly. I think they're getting prescriptions, they're coming out. The counseling sessions start at 8. 15 to 20 people arrive for counseling sessions to about 10, 11. They have a security guard. The security guard in a residential neighborhood is watching my house. Today I had to go to Aaron's house, and he sat there and watched me. Why is there a security guard if it's normal office use? Because some of the patients coming are a little bit unnerving. They're intoxicated, they're high. We've noticed some packages missing from front porches. I have reports from the Cambridge Police Department. This is not neighborly kind of behavior that we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks. It's not general office use. So Mr. Hool revealed in the Cambridge Chronicle that 15 to 20 patients come for each counseling session. Do you understand that's a turnover of 30 to 40 patients every hour during rush hours? 8 to 10. That is not normal office use. And by the way, that gets repeated again in the evenings. I'm trying to get home from work. My children did lessons. Children come to school. 40 people, 40 cars up and down the street. People walking. And that's in addition to the 22 staff who are there. This is a parking lot that holds 30 people. Can you imagine the traffic jams in our street? It is a nightmare. When Thinking Phones was there, normal office use, they would arrive, the cars would sit, and then they would leave. And it was sort of a trickle out between 5 in the afternoon and 7 in the evening, and a trickle in the morning from 7 to 9. This is nonstop, and it's particularly bad on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We've noticed Mondays and Fridays are a little quieter. And by the way, the staff do refer to them as patients, and I think that matters. There's more patients than there are, I don't see clients coming in there or being served, so I'll stop there.
Thank you for taking the time, and to everyone else, taking the time to come down and express your views in whichever way. It is helpful to the board. One second, ma'am. Done.
Hi, my name is Heike, H-E-I-K-E. My last name is spelled S-C-H-O-T-T-E-N. I live at 8 King Street. I've lived there for the last 8 years. I'm definitely not a legal expert or a medical expert, so I can only offer an anecdote. But when I go to therapy, and I'll be not in Cambridge, it's in Brookline, right? And it is covered by insurance, it's true. When I file the claims, they ask me where the therapeutic treatment took place. And there's a drop-down menu, there's a list of all the places, like a hospital, a clinic. There's like a million options. And then one of the options is office, which is always what I pick. Because that's where I go to my therapist's office, and she has an office with all these other people who have offices, and that's where they work. And I wish that my insurance company had as generous an interpretation of medical as the people in this room, because I always get cut off and don't get reimbursed for my sessions after 13 of them because my therapy is not medically necessary, right? So I think we need to be, the fact that, according to my insurance company, I count as a patient, and that I'm being seen in an office doesn't necessarily make what's happening.
Are you going to address the issue of whether this is general office use?
Well, I go and see a therapist who works in an office, and I get apparently therapeutic treatment that is not medically necessary in an office. So it seems to me, not being a medical expert, or a legal expert, not knowing Cambridge law, it seems like therapists work in offices. And that's where they dispense treatment.
Thank you very much.
The other thing I just would say about security guards, there are security guards in schools, there are security guards in shops, there are security guards in places where people live.
But not
And-
residential.
And as someone who didn't grow up in this region, I find most people in Boston to be terrifying drivers.
That's one issue I want to quarrel with you about.
Just downright rude.
Yeah, sorry. Bob, I don't remember your last name. I know your
Dick.
first name is Bob.
Dick, it's Dick, actually.
Dick.
Yeah. Richard Cleary.
You're the president of the North Cambridge.
I have trouble remembering my last name also.
First name.
Is this in?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't want to be redundant.
Please don't be redundant.
I'm the outgoing chairman of the Cambridge, North Cambridge Stabilization Committee. Mr.
Name and
Melding's-
address.
Name and address.
15 Burkford Street, Cambridge. And Mr. Melding referred to a meeting that we held. We held that meeting without the benefit of the applicant attending, because the applicant repeatedly refused to attend our meeting, which is always a flashing light in our view, and declined to answer questions that I was interested in, such as where did they get the approval for what they were doing? And I have,
What decision did the North Cambridge Stabilization Committee reach with regard to the, if they did reach, with regard to tonight's case? Are you in favor of the granting the appeal, denying it?
Well, it seemed obvious to everyone in attendance this was not, this use was not what they represented to the city.
Okay.
And so they left us on our own as to what they thought they were. And as a result, we went to the Somerville inspectional services to see what they told the city of Somerville they were, because they were in Somerville until a few days ago, June 1, I guess, or sometime in June. So what they told the Somerville inspection service they were is a detox facility and a drug treatment facility. They didn't tell the city of Somerville that they were general office use. And so that seemed somewhat telling to me, given the considerable experience that these applicants have and the places of business they have in many communities. They were not naifs when it came to knowing what they should do. And I'd like to introduce this statement from the Somerville Inspection Service.
It's a copy of the certificate of inspection.
It's dated 2013 and it expires this month, I believe. So I believe everyone has concluded they are not a general office.
Okay, thank you for taking the time to come down.
I'll be quick.
Please.
Steffens. Steffens, Steffens, and it's 81 Yorktown Street in Somerville. I'm a direct abutter, and I would just basically say this is what zoning's all about: is to give the community a chance to weigh in when something different is coming into a community. And I think the fact that it just didn't happen is what's created all the fervor. So I would say it's not general office use, and that was the point of the zoning in the first place, is to give people a chance to meet and talk about what's happening in the community. So.
Thank you, too.
Aaron Brathwaite, I live at 61 Washburn Avenue.
Spell your last name.
Brathwaite. I've been living on the street for 68 years. I've seen all the offices that have been on that facility and what they used to do, how the building was planned for community people to go and work. You would see Mrs. Jones, who worked in the place. I would see her son at school, and things like that. What I want to say, there is the new coordinated drug that helps people OD on heroin, and I want to know, is that on the premises of their establishment? Because you have to be certified to apply. Either be a first responder, as a police officer or a firefighter, or a medical person. And I don't see this being a good fit for our neighborhood. I don't know. The other people have spoken for it. The young people. I've been a sheriff. I was a sheriff in Norfolk, Virginia, for 8 years, and I know how the communities will evolve when they first had a mental health place or a drug rehabilitation place. I saw it evolve. It starts off small, and then it starts rolling like a snowball. And I used to have to deal with these people in the jail, and I don't think this was, as I see the same type of, I don't want to say the same type. There are people who need mental health. There's some people who need, who are heroin addicts. They need to be serviced too. But in this particular area, it doesn't work. And that's all I can say.
Thank you.
Excuse me, could you just give me your address again?
61 Washburn Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Directly across the street.
Okay, thanks.
My name's James Williamson, 1000 Jackson Place in North Cambridge. And I went to the meeting, or a portion of the meeting that Dick Clary mentioned, and heard a lot of stories from neighbors who were, suddenly having to deal with a lot of serious sounding problems. I didn't experience it myself. On the other hand, as a recovering alcoholic myself, for many years now, I have considerable sympathy for the idea that people in our community need places where they can get help. The key question to me that I have sitting here listening to the discussion and the back and forth gets back to what, Constantine, you said, which is this or is this not general office? I think there are concerns about what might have been done better earlier on in this process. and the concerns that neighbors had about consultation and participating in neighborhood meetings, but is there more to the definition of general office that you all are working with than just those two words, general office?
There's nothing in the zoning ordinance that defines it or elaborates on it. So
And there we are.
I think we're back to the, I think, the common usage of the word, or the common understanding of the word means.
So I don't have an answer to that.
But there is stuff in the zoning ordinance, I will point out, that defines medical facilities and mental health facilities, specific from general office.
Oh, really?
Good point.
So mental health facilities
Exactly.
specifically. Oh, well, then that's pretty meaningful to see.
I was just reading it.
Anyone
Social
else?
service facilities, I'll call it social services.
Anyone else wish to be heard? How come I knew you were going to be last?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I go last, so I hear,
Sorry?
Can I just make one more point?
I would rather she didn't speak. She already had her turn and she was
Yeah, I think, I can't believe you will say something that we haven't heard already.
Okay, that's fine.
So thank you. I'm sorry. You've had your turn.
so, Mr. Chair, that's why I go last, so I won't be tempted to repeat.
I have other reasons. I think
You don't mind
for
what?
other reasons. but I'm
My
not-
name is Michael Brandon, B-R-A-N-D-O-N. I live at 27 Seven Pines Avenue, and I'm the clerk for the North Cambridge Stabilization Committee. And we have been trying to help resolve this problem since we became aware of it. And unfortunately, Mr. Houle decided to have a separate meeting rather than come to ours. And Ranjit and the city manager and the city solicitor all attended, so they are aware of his description of what happened. I'm a little, I thank the chairman for pointing out on the estoppel issue. The legal arguments seem to be blaming the city for this predicament that they're in. And I don't think that's the case, and it's unfair. You mentioned NIMBY. I just want the board to understand, without going into it, yes, this kind of facility, usually nobody wants it in their backyard. However, North Cambridge, our community, has always welcomed, and we're quite aware of the opiate crisis. We all have family members and friends who've been hurt by it, and we want people to get help. But the point is, this is not a general office where they can get that kind of help. It's a medical clinic. There are residential facilities in North Cambridge, several, I think, near Porter Square, where recovering patients can live. And that's appropriate use, where it's not tons of people and constant traffic in and out. So that people appreciate the mission, and that's why our group and all the neighbors I've heard from have offered to try to help NCI find a better location. Perhaps get some help from the city in affording a new fit out somewhere else where it does make sense. Also, even on Mass Ave, very near this, we have the Marino Medical Center, which provides treatment facilities. We have several office buildings that have multiple psychotherapists and acupuncturists and other healthcare providers in them, and those seem to work out okay, but that's not in a Residence B zone, which only allows, as you know, low-density residential use, and in this particular location, because it was grandfathered, general offices. So I think that you're narrowing the question is good, and a little bit broader question, is this an office use under the ordinance, or is it an institutional use? And if you read through those sections of Article 4, the use table, you'll see that clearly this is an institutional use. It's a health facility use. Now, there are various categories there. Under office, the only possible argument that this might fit is that you can have like a physician's office or a dentist's office under some circumstances. But it doesn't, talk about group facilities, or there's actually an exam room in the facility, but it's associated with this broader thing. So I would ask that if there's any question, that the board read the definitions in the definition section for clinic, for community center, for social service center. Those three categories all might encompass the counseling service that NCI offers. But if you drill down and then look at the use table, I think you have to conclude that this falls under the rubric of institutional use, section 4.33, and then it's either, so it's not any kind of office, general or otherwise, but it's an institutional use as either a healthcare facility, that's section D of 4.33, or a social service facility, that's section E. In my view, it falls under number 5 under the healthcare facility, a clinic affiliated with a hospital or accredited university medical school. And there's clear evidence in the record that that's what they are, or what their letterhead calls themselves that. Perhaps not clinic in their terminology, but a clinic in the definitions of the Cambridge zoning ordinance is an institution licensed under Chapter 111, Section 51, for the purpose of providing medical, surgical, dental, or restorative or mental hygiene services to persons not residing therein. So I would argue this is clearly a clinic, and that it's a medical clinic, and that if they do, when the board, I'm sure, will uphold the interpretation that this is not an office. And then they do have the option of appealing your decision, which would be a further waste of their legal funds, which could be better used to serving their mission. And they can apply for a variance, but the standards for that are very high. They have no real hardship here. So I'll wrap up.
We're not going to discuss and decide that.
That's right. On the question before you, that's clear. To the extent that they claim that the city knew what was going on in advance, I'd just point out that if you take a look at Article 9, Section 23 of the ordinance, that has to do with certificates of occupancy. And in fact, what they failed to do, as they are required to do, was to apply and indicate there what use category they intended to use this for. I gather the building permit application, which I haven't seen, just talks about renovating interior spaces. What the ordinance requires is in cases where a building permit is required, a CO shall be applied for at the time of application for a building permit.
They did apply for it. They did apply. That's what I said. That was the point I made many minutes ago. The fact of the matter is, and they did, and there they listed.
At the time they applied for the building permit, you're saying they applied for
they got a certificate of they got a certificate of occupancy from ISD, and ISD has since decided that
you're missing my point, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
They didn't, as far as I can tell, because they came in at the last minute and said medical facility.
No, the other way around.
Had they?
The other way around. They filled it out originally medical, and then someone crossed it out and wrote it.
I know that. I'm talking about the timing they applied for the occupancy.
What's the relevance of this, Mr. Brander?
It's that they made their own. they're blaming the city for the change.
We've been put past that. As I've indicated, we're not, the city's blame or lack of blame is not the issue here. The issue is very narrow, it's very simple, it's very direct. Is this a
All I'd
general
ask is, for the record, section 9.23 required them to apply before they'd got the building permit. They waited until afterwards and then revealed that they wanted to be a medical clinic. Ranjit said no, and then it happened. So they created their own situation, and I hope that they will rethink it and work with the neighborhood to move to a better location, to a legal location and an appropriate location. Thank you very much.
May I add one?
You have a chance to leave. Let me see if I can get a chance to leave. You spoke once before, ma'am. Do you have anything new and compelling you have to bring to our attention?
And short.
That's even better.
First,
Your name again?
Cindy Weisbart. I want to honor your focus on the definition of general office use rather than anything else in this discussion. And second, I want to bring to your mind as you're thinking to be cognizant of the discussion of these people and if that affects your thoughts about the general use of the word.
I'm sorry, Mr. Repeat that. I didn't get it.
The phrase "these people" and their impact on the neighborhood. These people. So that's a phrase that's stuck in my ears as people.
These people, that phrase has been used, but that's not relevant to our decision in any way.
Wonderful.
At least in my opinion.
Thank you.
I mean, it's not going to influence my decision.
Thank you.
That's all I can say. Anyone else wishes to be heard?
Hi, Heather Hoffman, 213 Hurley Street, and I have one small question, which is when you have a pre-existing non-conforming use, how much intensification is allowed before you say that it's no longer a continuation of the use? And I don't know the answer to that.
And I don't know I'm not going to give you an answer tonight. We decide these cases on a case-by-case basis, and we'll deal with it when the case comes up. I'm going to end public testimony because Mr. Hughes is kicking me under the table.
Got a long way.
One question.
Yeah, go ahead. No, questions are fine.
What are the hours of operation?
Generally speaking, it's about 7:30 till about 7 at night, but only 3 days a week is at 7 at night.
So 7 a.m., 7 p.m., 3 days a week.
And it's 7 a.m. 5 days a week. And Friday,
I'm sorry, 7 a.m. to,
well, till about 4 or 5. On Fridays we close. Well, Fridays there are no folks visiting after noontime, and we're not open on the weekends.
okay. So what time, if you're open till 7 p.m., and that's when the offices close?
Yes.
Everybody, staff, clients, or
Everybody leaves.
how to,
Yes.
folks,
Yes.
they would clear out maybe half an hour or something like that, 7:30-ish, I guess,
Yeah, I mean,
by the time people
cleaning
get
guys.
through talking.
Cleaning guys.
Yeah, okay, got it,
Yes.
okay.
Any further questions?
Do you have any other licenses that you're required to get, or do you have any registration, professional organization nature or something?
To the first point, that's actually what I wanted to follow up on. North Charles is not licensed under Chapter 111, Section 51, which is your definition of clinic. They do have licenses under other sections of Mass General Law, and I don't know about professional affiliations.
Nothing professional. That'd be like, for just.
I don't know if you belong to, if you have a registration that you required, or that you keep as part of the, organization or something like that.
Licensing.
Well,
the licensing comes from the Department of Public Health, through the Department of Public Health, and it's through Chapter 111. I don't want to talk on it. There's three. I want to say it's BCE.
Department of Public Health.
Health, right? That's our license. Talk on it. There's three. I want to say it's BCE.
So the Department of Public Health.
Right. That's our license.
Yes.
Yes.
To operate, basically. Okay. Whatever that
probably about 75% of the licensure is building related as much as it is.
Public access.
A lot of it's public access.
Okay, it's going to be short, and this is the last
My
comment.
name is Bill Brathwaite, 51 Washburn.
Spell it,
Just a
please.
quick-
Spell it, please.
B as in Boston, Rathwaite,
And the address?
51 Washburn. My question is it the function of the Department of Public Health to issue licenses to all general business offices?
No, it's a facetious question.
If we have no expert here on the issue, your question will go unanswered, I'm afraid. Okay, I'm going to close public testimony. I'm going to, for the record, we are in receipt of significant written communications. I'm not going to read them, they're long. I'm not going to read them into the record. I'm going to try to briefly summarize what we have. I mean, they're generally, not entirely, in opposition to the appeal. In other words, to deny the appeal. We have a letter from George Caddis, K-I-T-I-S, who's from Stone River Properties on 720 Massachusetts Avenue. He's in support of the decision of the commissioner, and I think he does it because, no, anyway, he's in support. He owns a number of properties in the city, apparently. We have a letter from Craig Kelly, city councilor, who is opposed to the appeal. We have a letter from, I have George Caddis again, two copies, another one from Craig Kelly. People want to be heard. A letter from William, and some of these people, the letters have written, people have written letters you probably have spoken, but I'm going to just mention names anyway. William Harnoy, Harnois, resides at 54 Washburn Avenue. A letter from Aaron Braithwaite, 61 Washburn Avenue, and these are all letters in opposition to the appeal. In other words, they all in support of the decision of the commissioner. The resident at 55 Washburn Avenue, opposed. A letter from someone from 81 Yorktown Street in Somerville, Mass, Jessica Stephens. Actually, she lives in Topsfield, Mass, and she is the owner of an abutting property which she leases out. And she also is opposed. We have something from Monica, where you've already spoken, Monica and Ivan Toft, T-O-F-T, opposed in great detail, which I appreciate. I'm not being sarcastic. It just prevents me from reading it. I'm sure I'm going to miss some. We have copies of some police reports which were attached to a letter from maybe Ms. Toth, but I'm not going to get into that. I guess that's it, but that's it. It's very long and detailed, these letters. I think the message that in these letters has already been conveyed to this board tonight by oral testimony or oral comments, in my judgment. So I'm going to end the public testimony. You'll have now an opportunity to make any final statements you'd like to make, if you want them.
Letters in, letters in to the,
From Mrs. Singanaya?
yes, to,
Sure, hold on. Very brief here.
yeah. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, was there a letter from State Rep Rogers? I've seen one.
There is, I may have missed it.
Okay.
It's a very voluminous file.
He
I don't
expressed-
remember one, but
Well, he expressed very concerns. He lives in the neighborhood himself. Although he's...
Well, if their letter is there, it's part of the record.
Okay.
Sorry, Council, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
At the risk of repeating myself, I do want to just sum up that in our view, ISD has twice made a decision that what North Charles does is general office use, and stood by that decision up until certain complaints started occurring. Those complaints do not change the fact of what it is that North Charles does or doesn't do at the premises. And in fact, North Charles is not doing anything at the premises that is not fully disclosed and is not approved as general office use by ISD. I appreciate that the neighbors are concerned and that they see it as a difference in use, but we again reiterate that ISD, up until complaints were made, did not see it as a change of use. and they determined it to be a general office use, and we are asking this board to uphold that determination, notwithstanding that the neighbors are not pleased.
And that's it for all public testimony. I think it's time for us to deliberate. Anyone wish? I'll be happy to go first, but if anyone wishes to speak, go ahead.
I'll go first. I wish I could vote against the commissioner on this one, because by upholding the commissioner's decision, you're going to go through a variance process, and we're going to have to do this all over again with this same group of people, and it's going to be acrimonious. It's going to be worse than just narrowing this focus to whether your use has expanded past general office use. It's really going to be the NIMBY thing. It's really going to be the people that don't want you in their neighborhood versus the people that do want you in their neighborhood. We're going to have to do this thing all over again. And I would rather be able to avoid that, but I can't in good conscience suggest that what you're doing in that space now is general office use. So I am going to vote to uphold the commissioner's decision.
Actually, the vote will be to deny the appeal.
To deny the appeal.
Accurate about that. Anyone, I have some views, but anyone else want to go?
No, I would concur with that. I feel the same way. It's a valuable, sure, sorry. It's a valuable service. The community has to support it, find the right place for it, welcome it, congratulate you for doing what you do. But in this definition, I couldn't agree to support what you're asking for.
My feeling is more of the same. Although you cling to it like a drowning person's clinging to a plank, I am completely unimpressed with the argument that since you disclosed your purposes to the city, somehow there is a course of dealing which binds the city and binds this board into some determination that what you have, that the present function is established as a general office. I completely am unpersuaded by that line of argument. And you applied for the status of a general office. That's what you have. That's what you're entitled to. Words have meanings. These legal categories have significance. If you had applied for a medical office, there was a different procedure. If you apply for a social service, there's a different procedure. I think the evidence is extremely strong tonight that however you slice it, professional services are being rendered in this office, and that it is not compatible with the general understanding of a general office in insurance, real estate, computer repair, something that's of a general office retail services offered to the public. So on that basis, I will vote to deny the appeal.
And I as well. I'm not going to say more than the other three members who preceded me said everything I would say. And I would also underscore what Jim has said about, and Tim too, about the worthiness of what you're doing. It's not a matter of we have a problem with it. The question of zoning allow this to happen in this neighborhood. That's the question before us. I'm not persuaded that this falls under the rubric of general office. Therefore, I would vote to deny the appeal as well. Want to speak or not?
No, this was a little bit more difficult for me because the yardstick that we're measuring by is quite fluid. It's not well-defined, ill-defined, and so it's a little bit difficult for me to say yes to you and no to the commissioner. It's also difficult to say yes to the commission. He was correct. It's fair. But I do think that the intensity is greatly increased from prior use, and I think that the intensity and the impact is different than the prior use. And like Doug, I think that your advocacy, though well done, is misses the mark because they did not necessarily sanction your use. They sanctioned what you submitted for. I think was really the gist of what you were saying. Is that correct? Well, they approved what you applied for, but it was the action after that. That's occupancy started. That is really the crux of what went on here. difficult, but I would probably concur with the commissioner's determination.
Thank you. All those in spoken, I think it's time for a motion. And again, this is an appeal. The motion will be in the form of whether we grant the appeal. So the chair moves that we grant the appeal of the petitioner seeking to reverse, if you will, the determination of the commissioner regarding the use of these premises. All those in favor of granting the appeal or approving the appeal, please say aye. No one's in favor, therefore the motion is not carried. The appeal is denied. I think for the record, I want to add that the chair moves that the appeal has been denied because, with respect to 54 Washburn Avenue, located in a residentially zoned district, a legal non-conforming use exists only with regard to general office use. The petitioner's activities at these premises do not constitute general office use. The premises are used by the petitioner in substantial part by medical professionals performing medical duties such as issuing prescriptions and offering psychiatric care. These activities do not constitute general office use. Does the board concur with that? Does that be part of our record?
Yeah, sure.
Or do you want to add to it?
I would say the word treatment facility, which has been used widely in relation to these offices or these premises, this business, is itself a strong indication that it's not general office.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming down.
Thank you.